God put him in my life for a reason, and I believe that reason was to share the gospel.
Yeah.
And he shared it with me every single night. He would pray with me. He would encourage me to come to church.
Welcome to the Everyday Faith Podcast from Eastside. This is where faith meets real life, right where you live. Here we dive into honest conversations about where God is moving in our everyday moments, in our homes, our neighborhoods, and our community. Whether you're listening on your morning commute, walking the dog, or winding down at home, we're glad you're here. Let's explore what everyday faith looks like. Hey there, welcome back, and we're glad that you're here again today with us on Everyday Faith. I'm Isaac Johnson.
I'm Pastor Finley Cutshaw, and today we have a special guest.
Hello, everyone. My name is Dustin Stewart.
All right, Dustin Stewart's here with us. And let me just kind of give us a little bit of background of how we came to know Dustin Stewart. And Dustin Stewart is actually Captain Dustin Stewart of the Bartlett Police Department. And
I like to refer to him as Captain Bartlett.
Captain Bartlett.
Like Captain America, you know.
Well, I guess most people that I heard around like Cap Stewart.
Oh, Cap
Stewart.
Cap Stewart
That's
was the what I heard around. But it was about I don't know, around Christmas time or around New Year's. I came across an advertisement on the old interwebs on Facebook. And I saw Clergy Police Academy, and I was like, oh, that'd be pretty neat. So I sent it to Pastor Cutshaw, and I said, I think I'm going to do this. And then he signed up, and then, in fact, Brother Harry Peart signed up as well. And we all went to this Clergy Police Academy. And honestly, before I went in, I didn't know what I was, getting myself into.
Right.
I was like, I was expecting, okay, well, they'll talk to us about what they do and that sort of thing. And okay, that'll kind of be it. But the very first night, I don't know about you, I walked away from that place and I was like, oh my goodness.
Yeah, me too. It was tremendous.
This is totally different from what I expected. Yeah. I didn't expect to hear testimonies of salvation for one thing. I'm like, okay. But the Bartlett Police Department has, I believe, a different culture from any police department around the country.
I agree.
Yeah.
From what I have gathered and what I've seen, in fact, Chief Cox, which I hope to get him on sometime too, but he was talking about how that when they swear the officers in, they give each one of them a Bible.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
It made me glad to live in the city of Bartlett, honestly, and to be able to minister here and have a church inside the city of Bartlett. I don't know, Pastor Cutshaw, you can probably add a little bit to that, but that's where we came to know Captain Dustin Stewart. He is the one that is over, had the vision, him and another officer, Jeremy, and they had this vision for the Clergy Police Academy to bring the clergy, the churches, and the community. How do we bridge that gap between the police officers, the community? And that was kind of the idea, and I'm sure he can speak more to that.
Yeah, I think we ought to let him just tell us a little bit about that real quick since he's here with us. And I would highly recommend it to any pastor in the Bartlett area. So tell us how that came to be.
Yeah, so around 2019, 2020, back when it was a very tumultuous time in our country, Jeremy and I were just kind of sitting around talking, and we had heard of a clergy academy in other parts of the country, and it just at that time, we were like, man, I think we should do this for our community as well. Really one, from an educational standpoint, to like let not only pastors know what we do, so how can they take that back and then help their congregations? Some of the classes that we gave y'all, we wanted to really tailor those classes to where they could benefit, the pastor, so that if they had somebody within their congregation, they could be aware of that, and they could say like, hey, I think you should maybe seek out the police, or maybe seek out some other type of advice to really help them out, whether it be from frauds to gangs to drugs to, y'all have both been through it.
Yeah, it was eye-opening. That's one way I would describe it, very eye-opening. And the information we received. In fact, one of the things we want to do is have some of the people with the fraud department. I'm not sure if is it.
That's a good name, fraud department. Yeah, fraud department.
Have them come and talk to our senior citizens, because that's a big issue for them now.
Yeah,
the phone
absolutely.
scams and the internet scams and all that. So, here's something I will say. Just the fact that y'all do that. And then there's the Citizens Academy, and I would recommend that. We're going to eventually go back so we can do the shooting and the driving.
Yeah.
But I would recommend all of that. But I think the fact that you all do this shows me something about your heart, and many of the people that you work with. They care about the community.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's a big deal to me.
Isaac earlier mentioned that the first night was kind of the best night that you thought for you, and you took a lot away from that night. And that's kind of funny because we really just do the building tour. So, Jason and Jeremy jokingly say this year I kind of took more of we'll call it a backseat role in this academy. Not to say that I wasn't actively involved, but like I would leave a lot of some of the nights, but they always say the first night and the last night are your night to shine. So they're like, man, you really turned it on. And so it's funny that you say that was that you heard all that. But you are correct. Of like, we want to share our testimonies as to like, how has God worked in our hearts? How has God led us? Why is he leading us to start a clergy academy? Why is he leading us in our everyday faith? Is the name of your podcast.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it was good. And that really was, I think you guys nailed it that first night to pull us in. Men and women of faith that are there for that. It really made a great connection. And here's the thing that a lot of people forget, and I don't want to get too far off track here with the direction we're going in, but a lot of people forget that the laws of our land, in fact, the laws of all lands really are rooted in the Word of God.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%.
Romans tells us that God has put a divine law written on the heart of every person. And then from that, you look at the Ten Commandments, and the majority of laws basically start on those.
Yeah.
And so it's a shame you got to make so many laws within the laws because people find new ways to do wrong. And so, but we appreciate y'all. And Romans 13 tells us that you are ordained of God. You have a purpose here in this world, and we're very thankful for you.
Yeah, well, thank y'all. Appreciate y'all attending.
We loved it.
I did, absolutely, and everything about it was great. Yeah. But the reason why we brought Captain Stewart on today, and it was because of that first night, right? And he started sharing his testimony of how God changed his life and changed his direction. And I said, man, that is everyday faith right there.
You could tell that not just Captain Stewart, but a couple of the other people that shared, their faith actually meant something to them. They weren't putting on a show just because we were pastors there.
Right.
And so that was meaningful.
So we've asked him today to come on to kind of share a little bit of that story of how that God changed his life. And so wherever you want to begin, if you want to begin, wherever, just start and take it away, man.
Well, I hope y'all got comfortable chairs.
Oh, we do. I do, at least.
Yeah, I'm good.
So it's funny that you mentioned this. Recently at my church, I shared my testimony on Sunday. One day, the Pastor Drew Murphy, he asked me to share my testimony because he had heard kind of some things that how God had really worked in my life, particularly in the last few years. And he just wanted me to share my testimony. And he asked me, he goes, hey, can you email me something to do that? I said, okay, well, it's 19 pages long. And he goes, all right, okay. So I emailed him, and he goes, I saw him the next day at church, and he goes, man, that was awesome. He goes, I read all 19 pages. I'm like, you did? Wow, that's more impressive that you read the 19 pages. And he follows that up, but he goes, I'd really like for you to share here in the next Sunday or so your testimony in front of everybody for a Sunday service. I was like, wow, okay, that's a lot of people to share in front of, especially all my wrongdoings in life. He goes, but I need you to keep it to 5 minutes. And I said, true.
19 pages in 5 minutes.
19 pages in 5 minutes. So with some working and stuff like that and dwindling down, I was able to do that. But he wants me to share again the whole thing eventually to a ministry that we have at our church called New Direction. It kind of helps people with addiction, different addiction issues, whether it be, whatever type of addiction they could have, as well as, just everyday life, I guess. Just the issues that they face that offers assistance for people. So hopefully I'll get to do that here in the coming weeks, if the Lord still wants me to do that, and we'll get there. But I guess I need to back up, and so we'll kind of start early in my childhood, and I'll kind of give you the Cliff Notes version of that so we can get kind of to where really God's worked in my life today. Is like, I grew up and I was aware of the Lord. Like I was aware that Jesus came here and, he died on the cross for my sins. But like, it was never something I really embraced. So I grew up, where my grandparents, grew up as a Cumberland Presbyterian. Mm-hmm. And then my mother's side of the family was Church of Christ. Well, growing up as a kid like that, it's really under the age of 5, my mom and father got a divorce. Mm. And I can remember vividly to this day the fight that led up to that separation. It was pretty violent to where my dad, he beat up my mom pretty good, and he kind of did some things to me and my sister, and he actually took me and my sister with him to where he lived at. And so that's the day that I still remember that. So, and things like that kind of stick around with you,
sure,
the stuff. And so growing up as a kid like that, I grew up, I really split my time between my father's house, who was really left a lot of those empty promises that that you don't want to see in a father. It's like, hey, I'll be at your game, but he never showed up, or hey, I'll get you this, but it never really happened. And so I didn't realize then the mental toll that it took on me, how it set me back in life, how it, having that father that was never really there. My mother did a fantastic job raising us. We kind of grew up in Parkway Village area, Memphis. Yeah. And my dad lived in Sweet Lips, Tennessee, if you've ever heard of that.
Never heard of that.
Sweet
Lips.
It's right next to Finger, Tennessee.
Oh, I know where Finger is. Yeah, I've heard of Finger.
Most people have heard of Finger. Yeah, Finger, Tennessee. But a lot of people don't really know where Sweet Lips is. So we grew up there. And so my grandparents, my father's parents were absolutely wonderful Christians, man. If the church doors were open, they were there. If they were somebody to share the word of God with, man, they were sharing it. So that's really kind of like where I grew a lot of my earlier influence of what Christ is like, but I still held on to a lot of that stuff of like those empty promises that my father had. So like that took a real big toll on me as a child. But so that toll that it took on me led into my teenage years as well too, where for me, it was normal. And what I was supposed to do is I was supposed to hang around with gang members, and I was supposed to hang around and do drugs and drink and do all the stuff that you do as a young teen in high school and middle school. I can remember smoking my first cigarette at 11 years old. So I can remember trying drugs for the first time at 12, and then starting drinking the same time as between 11 and 12 years old. And it's like, you think about that now, and I see 11 or 12-year-olds today, and I'm like, man,
you're a child. I mean,
yeah, how could I make those choices that young?
Yeah.
But I didn't really have the best influences in life. And while my mother was absolutely heaven sent, I mean, she was a great lady. She had to work a lot to support me and my sister, because my dad wasn't really there financially either. So, he, while he wasn't around a lot, my mother did the best she could with what she had.
Yeah.
And, she would take us to church, and then my grandparents would try to take us to church. Well, because I split that time between my mother and my father, a lot of times my father would make me feel guilty when I came back to my mother's house. So that even took more of a toll. So the drug and the alcohol and the bad decisions of hanging around the wrong people really took a really big toll on my life in my teenage years. I tell a lot of people today, it's like the only reason I'm a police officer today is because I probably didn't get caught doing a lot of the foolishness that I did as a young child.
Yeah.
And I tell you all this not to brag about it, but it's very shameful for me now. That, like, I can't really believe that where I'm at today, what I did then, and it's just like, man.
I can understand that.
Yeah. I say a lot of times to people, if I could go back and meet Dustin Stewart again at 18 years old, I would punch my teeth out. So, I would have dentures at a very, very young age. So
I got a friend that we've discussed that many times, and I have some similarities in my background to yours. But my buddy, he says, if you were able to go back and tell yourself something, you know what? You wouldn't listen.
Yeah. No, I definitely wouldn't have. You're 100% correct there. I would have not listened at all. But so I kind of started seeing, though, when I was doing those drugs and stuff around 16, 17 years old, that I remember my mom caught me doing drugs one time, and to see that the heart, the hurt that she had in her heart, catch me doing that, it really, I think that's where God, I look back on it now, and that's where God really put a seed in my head to like, hey, you've got to stop doing stuff like this, or you're not going to be anywhere in life. So my solution to that, because my family has always served in every branch of the military as far back as I can count, I decided I wanted to go into the United States Marine Corps. So I remember some friends and I were out, and so I stopped doing drugs. I didn't stop the drinking. I didn't stop the cigarettes and the tobacco and and some of the bad decisions. Now, I probably wasn't doing all the criminal things that I was doing earlier as much, but I was still probably not making the best of decisions. And so friends and I were standing around, probably drinking and smoking cigarettes at the time. And my mother had a cookout, and this Marine Corps recruiter, as soon as he got out of the car, he showed up with his date. He made a beeline for me and my friends. And at this time, I had already decided that, hey, I think I want to go into the Marine Corps. Well, he came over and he goes, any of you ever thought about joining the military? And I said, yeah, I have. The Marines. He goes, oh, really? Well, he had me at oh, really. So
Now, what year was that?
This was about 1997, 98.
Okay.
When this happened. When I graduated high school in 1999, so I'll kind of go back a little bit. In middle school, I moved to my father's home after a fight with my mother. And my dad, I can remember living with him as a middle school kid, and like he would make me go to bed at like 4:30 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon.
Oh wow!
And can you imagine that as a middle school kid?
That's pretty early.
So yeah, and it was crazy. And I was always like, why is he making me go to bed so early? Well, I would hear his truck crank up, and he would go out and he would go partying and drinking and stuff like that. And I can remember times him coming home drunk and stuff. And but I would call my grandparents and I would say, hey, can you come pick me up? My dad left again. And they were just like, man. And it, it broke their hearts as parents, but then, to see not only what he was doing to himself, but then what he was doing to his child. And so I just got kind of tired of that. So I decided I wanted to move back. Well, in moving back, my mother knew the place that I was in as a child was not going to be that one of production or just be a good person for society to live in. And so I was zoned for Wooddale High School. And she knew that just my behavior would not coincide with me going there. I would just probably either get worse. Yeah. So she enrolled me in First Assembly Christian School.
Yeah, okay.
And we were over there off of North Highland. And I remember all the way up into my senior year, I was on academic and disciplinary probation every single year. And I was always that you got one more chance before we're going to kick you out. And my senior year, around the time that I decided I wanted to go into Marines, I needed to stop doing all the foolishness so that I could go in the Marines. It wouldn't mess me up. Because I really just wanted to get out of I just wanted to get away from Memphis at the time.
Yeah.
So I went in the Marines. And so while I didn't do the drugs or anything anymore, my drinking, all it did was skyrocket. It really took off at that point. Because the two things that I thought Marines did was they looked really good in uniform, and they were really good at drinking.
Yeah.
So
unfortunately, there's probably some truth to both of those.
Yeah.
So
so I started drinking pretty heavily, and that continued pretty much up until here recently, where I did. And so in 2007, to kind of speed the process up a little bit, I got hired on with the Bartlett Police Department.
So let me ask you this while we're on this. So you were in the Marine Corps from when to when?
1999 to 2003.
Okay.
And
then you got out. What kind of work did you do right after you got out?
I did everything from sell cars to spray lawns to dig ditches to build swimming pools. I did a little bit of everything because growing up poor, I didn't really have any money. So when I got out of the Marine Corps, I just knew that I didn't want to stay in at the time, because I was still kind of young and immature and making a lot of bad decisions.
Sure.
So it just hey, you just got to go to work and earn a paycheck. So that's what I did.
You just put in an application at the Bartlett Police Department, or they were recruiting, or?
Yeah, so I'd gotten on with the reserves in Germantown.
Okay.
A year prior to that. So I was a reserve in Germantown and kind of helped out with their special events, traffic, and I would do the occasional ride along. But in 2007, I was working with the guy. I was working at Fairway Lawns. here in Memphis. And I worked with the guy that I currently work with now, Jeremy Springer. And me and him worked together at Fairway Lawns, and he says, hey, why don't you apply for Bartlett? I was like, man, I'm trying to get on with Germantown. I don't really know. And he goes, I really think you should. And so he got hired on, and then I continued to talk with him. And he goes, hey, I really think you should apply for Bartlett. It's a pretty cool place to work at. So I think I got on 6 months after he got hired on in the city of Bartlett. I believe he was hired on in March, and I got hired on in around December. I remember going to testing, and testing now for police is not like it was when I got hired on. Like, we did 3 different testing dates, and we had probably 100 to 200 people each of those testing dates. And so I remember standing next to a guy at the testing. He goes, hey, how many times have you applied? I said, this is my first. And he goes, well, this is my 7th.
Oh, wow.
And I was like,
This ain't happening.
I said, bro, I hate to tell you, but I'm not doing this 6 more times before I get hired on. He goes, well, in Bartlett, you have to apply this many times before you get hired on. And I was like, are they paying us in gold bricks or something? Like, what is this? Like, I became a cop because I thought I was going to make a lot more money than what I was. Little did I know now. That, but I remember that conversation very vividly that day, and I was just like, I'm not doing this again. Well, I ended up getting hired on, and everybody that I was hired on with 7 other people. It was all our first time to apply as well. So
wow.
I guess he was just one of the ones they didn't want. And, and over time, I've learned a little bit more about the hiring process, and probably that goes into the decision moving up in my career. So that's been good. But in 2007, I got hired on, and I started working afternoon shift. And I worked afternoon shift for probably like the next 2 years. I worked the afternoon shift. We have a late car, so we came in at 3:30. Well, we always had one more person that was a late car. So the person that was Jeremy Macer. And y'all know Jeremy, he's part of the Clergy Academy. He's one of the ones that helped me start it. And he would be my right-hand man for the Clergy Academy process. I do all the administrative work, and I send him out at recruiting time, like, hey, you need to start hitting up these churches. And he's like, oh my gosh, man, you are something else. He goes, I was like, so I met Jeremy, and Jeremy, man, he is, we would sit together a lot of times at night, and man, you talk about, I may get emotional talking about this, but
that's okay.
Jeremy, man, he is absolutely awesome. He is, God put him in my life for a reason, and I believe that reason was to share the gospel. Yeah. And he shared it with me every single night. He would pray with me. He would encourage me to come to church.
Wow.
And I remember he just encouraged me to come to his church. And I remember growing up, his church as a kid, like my definition of church was like, I'm a good person.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm a good person. I'm not doing any bad. I'm not doing the bad stuff that I did. Like my drinking's not a problem because I don't neglect my family. I don't neglect my, my wife. I don't do any of that. Like I'm still a good person. So, Macer really started encouraging me. Well, during that same process, when I got hired on in 2007 and 2008, in 2007, in March of 2007, my son was born. Out of I bad decision weekend, we'll call it. I met a girl that I dated in high school. We had kind of rekindled a relationship, and she got pregnant. And there was a question at the time of like, was I the father or was somebody else the father? So, and again, I did what I felt like I needed to do. Like I tried to support her and him financially, and my son Jared is 19 now, and man, he's a great kid. I mean, he really is. He's a knucklehead, but he's a great kid. So.
All 19-year-olds.
All night. Yes. So in 2007, March, he was born. In December, I got hired on. I got sent to the police academy. Well, I was like, man, how am I going to be this father? How am I going to not be the father that my father was to me? How can I be that better father to him? Well, I thought at the time like it was just, hey, just be there, just show up, just do everything that your dad didn't do, and you'll be fine.
And some of that's good now.
Yeah.
That's good.
Well, it is good, and I'll get to how I think that it's that was definitely probably not the way I should have looked at things.
Gotcha.
Towards the end of my testimony here. But it was And I thought that was how I rationalized in my head. It's okay for me still to go out and drink every day.
Because you were being a good person.
Yeah.
Better than your dad was.
Better than my father was, yeah. So when my son, the weekends that he would come and stay with me, I wouldn't drink as heavy as I did when he wasn't with me. So I would limit myself to 2 or 3 drinks versus when he wasn't with me, I would have 7 or 8 or however many I could have while my eyes were still open.
Yeah.
So
would you say you were a functioning alcoholic or a weekend alcoholic? Or?
Oh, yeah. 100% I was, yeah. So in 2008, I met my wife. I remember seeing her. I've told her this story before. I don't tell it a lot. But I saw her. She was walking down the hallway of our patrol hall, and I thought, man, who's that? But I was, again, making a lot of probably not morally good decisions for me as a person, and definitely not looking back on my life now. I was making a lot of bad decisions. So she just kept like hanging around, and she likes to tell a story every now and then. She don't tell as much anymore. She was over at my house one time, and she goes, well, where do you see yourself in 10 years? I said, I just see it being me and Jared. And she goes, Well, you can imagine if since y'all are both married, how that would go over with somebody that you were in a relationship with. It did not go over well.
Sure.
And I've apologized for that since.
Where were you all age-wise, you and your wife, at that time?
So my wife is 5 years older than me.
Okay. Well, when you made, don't tell me how old she is, you'll get in trouble.
No, I'm not going to tell you how old she is. So.
But when you made that great remark at that night, how old were y'all?
I think we were about 27.
Okay.
So she was a
little older than
little older. She's definitely aged more gracefully than me. But yeah. I met her, and it's funny that, I look back on it now, and I have a lot of look back on it now moments in my life. Yeah. And I saw the way God put her in my life, and then just the thing. So in 2010, we got married. Her and I did, and I had my son who coming into a relationship, and she had 2 children as well, Haley and Jacob. And I think Jacob was 7 and Haley was 10, I believe, when I entered the picture. So for me, like, that was huge. Like, I was just now learning how to be a father to like a small kid. So now I had to learn how to be a father to a 10 and 7-year-old. Well, I did it like most cops and Marines did. I handled it and the stressors of it by drinking more. And so, but again, I go back to, I didn't associate it myself because I was still providing financially, and I was still going to the games, and I was still doing this.
Yeah. But
looking back on it now, I wasn't leading my family the way that God has called me to lead my family.
Sure, absolutely.
So we go fast forward a little bit. We go through 2000. This is in 2010 when we get married. Well, my wife and I, on and off, and through my drinking, and we tried Jeremy continued to work in my life, man. He continued to pray for me, continued to encourage me to come to church. So around 2010, 2011, Jeremy said, hey, why don't you come to church with me one Sunday? So we go over here to his church over here on Germantown Road, and we went there. And so I could feel like, man, God started working in me a little bit. Well, then we came back again. Well, I like that church because it kind of reminded me like how my grandparents' church was, like the old school. You still sung out of hymnals and stuff like that. Now, I don't really like singing out of hymnals now. I like the band to cover up my voice because I don't have a face for TV or a voice for radio. So, but I felt like God moving in my life, and so we did that for a few weeks, and upwards to like a month or 2 months after going to church there, pretty faithfully on Sunday. Like I felt like, man, this overwhelming thing just like pulled me in. And so I remember I was sitting beside Jeremy that day in church, and I said, hey, would you go up to front with me? And he did, man, and I gave my life to Christ.
Wow, praise the Lord.
Yeah. Brother Kelly was the one who baptized me, and so I was baptized a few weeks later. And, man, it was, and then, like I said, I was on fire after that for Jesus. I was trying to share the Word of God. I was trying to read my Bible. But every time that they say that when somebody gives their life to Christ, the devil starts working overtime.
Yes.
Boy, he did. And he worked overtime in ways that, like, again, looking back on my life, is he really started increasing some of my drinking or finding a reason why I should drink. And then he moved me, like I got moved to a different shift. So now I was no longer working afternoon shift. I started working midnights. Well, when you work midnights.
Did that separate you and Jeremy?
Yeah, so Jeremy stayed on afternoons, and so he was the lowest in seniority then because I was the lowest, and so I got bumped to midnights for, I don't know, 6 months to a year. And, man, midnights I've done midnights twice in my career. Once as a patrolman for about 6 months, and then 2 years as a lieutenant. And midnight shift for some people, but for me, I felt like it was slowly killing me from the inside. So, but yeah, so we continue to do that, and so it's kind of go through life and like just continue to drink, continue to make bad decisions, to continue to probably like try to watch pornography, continue to just do just bad stuff of like not spiritually, that was not good for my spirit.
Yeah. So let me put it into kind of a Bible perspective here. You had trusted Christ as your Savior, but and you started off real well, but then the flesh.
Yeah.
You started allowing the flesh to still have control. And that's really, when you get saved, you don't get rid of that old sin nature.
Yeah.
And that old sin nature wants to be in control, and Satan hates to lose a good vessel.
Yeah.
Somebody he's already got control of. But I think he can get more accomplished, too, with a believer who's under the control of the flesh rather than the spirit than he can with an unbeliever.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
so he was fighting to control your life and to have a hand on you.
Absolutely.
Even after you came to Christ. But anyways, and that just puts it into perspective spiritually.
Feeding the flesh more than the spirit.
I fed the flesh a lot. So,
so go ahead and continue on.
So my wife and I continued to live in what I thought was, I was doing the things that I needed to do because, again, I would associate it, I wasn't doing the things that my father did. And then so, we there's a lot of times that, like, I was I was very mean to my wife. I was very, I asked for a divorce. I told her I wanted a divorce a few times. But man, you talking about, like, when I say now, looking back again, of where God put her in my life and like how she has just faithfully stood by me and faithfully pushed me to that, and my wife has her own testimony, and it's something to, I wish she would share it more. But like how she has just faithfully stood by me. And her walk with God has been, one of different as well too, but just her faith and how God gave her that faith to stand by me through all these years. It's just, it's just so cool. And I can't tell her oftentimes, or I'll probably never be able to express to her how grateful I am for her for that.
Praise the Lord.
Yeah. But she is, so we kind of go in, and so my career, and again, I go back to during my career at the police department, like I've always tried to do what I felt was right, and being a good person. And so, I always wanted to be an investigator. So I took the investigations test, and, I took it a few times and I got past it, but I didn't get chosen. Well, because of my upbringing as a child, and because I hung around gang members as a teenager, so my career path took me more towards like a violent crime aspect of police work and gang work. So, I was the first person in my department, really the only person in my department, to ever go to the multi-agency gang unit and serve a stint there. So I was blessed to go over there for 2.5 years. But man, 2.5 years, when you see the worst of the worst in police work, it definitely takes another mental toll on you. And again, my drinking was the way that I dealt with it.
Wow.
And just being a police officer in general, that's the way that the stressors of it was not one that where I turned to God, it was one where I turned to the bottle. So, I lived that life, but I always took care of my career. It never affected my work. It never affected my work that I thought.
Yeah.
So I was always good. So I finally got promoted to sergeant, and then as a sergeant, like I did, I got promoted. And so this is around 2013, maybe 2014, 2015-ish, somewhere around in there. I got promoted to sergeant, and man, I loved it. It was awesome. It was so cool.
Now, were you were still in the gang unit at that time? Or?
So I was in the gang unit. I came back to patrol for a year, and then I got promoted out of there. So that's maybe around 2015 that I was there. And then it was really cool. Like, no, this is going to be a little bit later. So maybe 2017, 2018, somewhere around there. Well, around that same time I got promoted to sergeant, my mother kind of fell into bad health where she needed a knee replacement and some other things. And so she was a flight attendant, and she loved doing that. And my mother and I had a great relationship. But in 2013, my father passed away from a heart attack. And so, like, I held on a lot of that stuff in 2013 of where he passed away, and, like, just that we never got to have that good conversation that you were like, hey, man, you provide a lot of hurt here, and this provided a lot of stuff, and we never got to talk through any of that. But there is one thing that I do take absolute gratitude in, is that towards the end of my father's life, I really felt like he tried to make up for his grandkids where his wrongdoings were as a father when we were kids. And I actually really believe that my father came to know the Lord too before he passed away.
Praise the Lord.
Yeah, because I have his Bible at home, and like you could tell, he made a lot of notes, and he was reading a whole lot. And he would oftentimes tell me, just by talking to him, we would talk once or twice a week. He was like, "Oh man, I read this chapter, and I read these books today, and like I've read through, you know, I can remember him saying like I've read through the Bible twice now, like."
Praise the Lord.
Yeah. So it's like, so I think he had a relationship with Jesus before he died, but you know, there's always that doubt that you have in there because of a lot of the decisions that you don't really know what people are doing behind closed doors.
Yeah.
Right.
Y'all don't really know what people are doing when they leave church on Sunday, you know?
Right.
Sure.
So we all have our Sunday best. And so what are we doing on not our Sunday best? So, so speed back up, go back to about 2018. My mother fell into bad health. Well, she needed a place to live. So my wife and I discussed, and we said, hey, why don't you move up with us? Well, we lived in Bartlett at the time. And she said that, hey, she goes, I really don't want to live upstairs, and I'd like to have an in-law suite. I said, well, cool. All right, well, we'll try to find a new house. Man, I felt we looked at 70 or 80 different houses.
Oh, my.
And I know I drove my realtor crazy at the time because I would call her last minute and say, hey, I want to go look at this house. And she was like, Dustin, it's 6 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, can we do something today? And she's like, so she would, and my realtor is actually, she's a police officer, Lori Thompson, that works here at the police department.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So she's one of our chief inspectors right now. So she was great she put up with a lot then. So, you know, shout out to her and thank you. So, we end up finding a house finally in Fayette County, Tennessee. And we found a little house. So I remember looking at that house that day and I called my wife and my mother. I said, well, I found the house. And they go, all right, that sounds good. So it had a small in-law suite, but my mother, she wanted it redone and expanded. So we added about 700 square feet onto it and made it bigger and nicer. And then for 2019, my mother wanted to go on an Alaskan cruise. She said she's always wanted to go on an Alaskan cruise. So, her stipulation was, not only did she want to go, she wanted all of her family and all of her friends to go on the cruise as well, too. So I felt like Carnival gave us a good deal because we rented out the boat. So we probably had 60 people-ish, 50 to 60 people there on that cruise. So it was really cool to see that. And so, like, my sister went, I went, my wife and my kids went. And so we had a really great time. It was really, really, really cool experience to see that and see how God's, to see his painting of life. And, that was something that it's cast a sweet spot in my brain. So
where are you at spiritually during this time? You've accepted Christ, but you're kind of strayed away. It's 2019.
I would say I was probably a quarter foot in, 3/4 foot out type of guy. So, I was still, again, I thought that I was doing, me and my wife, we would find a church and we would go to it, but it wasn't really, we would go to it faithfully.
Yeah.
We didn't read the Bible. We didn't really pray. We didn't, so we would go to church because we thought that, hey, again, that's what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to go to church on Sunday. So, and sometimes we wouldn't, sometimes we would. And shift work in church times doesn't necessarily line up.
Right.
And so, that's kind of unfortunate part. So maybe y'all could do a police service midnight.
That's actually a great idea.
Bad idea.
but yeah, so I would say, a quarter in, 3/4 out type guy. And we, dang, I almost, where was I at?
You're at the
You were-
cruise.
you were on the
yes,
cruise.
so we're on a cruise. So that cruise was great. It wasn't without turmoil though, because anytime you get that many family together and friends, there's always a little bit of turmoil. So we go on a cruise, and we get back June the 2nd or 3rd, I believe, is when we come back. We all fly back in. Everybody's back home. And 2 days later, I took my wife and children to go see a movie. 2 days after returning, we get my wife and kids to go see a movie. My mom, who is living with us at that time, she's out doing something. And we're sitting in a movie theater, and my phone rings, and it's my mom. Well, I'm like, hey, I set it to silent. I sent her a text. I said, hey, I'm with the kids at a movie. I'll call you afterwards. Well, before I could even sit still, she calls me right back. And I hit her, and so I hit her to voicemail again. I was like, hey, I'm trying to send you a text. Well, she calls right back, and I'm like, something's wrong.
Yeah. Wow.
Something's wrong. So I pick it up, and just like I told you a minute ago, that like how you feel like that the Alaska was beautiful and it left an imprint on my life. When I answer the phone, my mother's screaming and crying. And I'm like, what is going on? I'm like, Mom, I can't understand you. You need to calm down a little bit. I can't understand what you're saying.
Well, folks, we hope that you've enjoyed part 1 of our interview with Captain Dustin Stewart. And this is part 1 of 3. And we hope you join us again next week. Next Thursday, part 2 will be released. And we hope that you have a great day. Thanks for joining us here on Everyday Faith from Eastside. Thanks for joining us for the Everyday Faith podcast from Eastside. Remember, faith grows not just on Sundays, but in the everyday moments of your life. If today's conversation has encouraged you, share it with someone who might need it. And don't forget to follow and subscribe so you never miss an episode. We'll see you next time, right here on the Everyday Faith podcast from Eastside.